I don't think I'm exaggerating when I say that Nietzsche would say more in one paragraph than some people would say in their entire lifetimes, because it was so dense. This is very dense as well. There's a lot going on. I talked about this yesterday. I'll be as brief as possible. But yesterday I did 15 minutes, and I was thinking, man, we only got through a few words of this. I'm going to try to get through more than a few words as I talk about it. And hopefully it'll be useful in some way. Others? Okay, so it's important for us to understand when we say climbing high what we mean by that. Yes, metaphorically, we can climb high, but I don't know how to explain how to do that. Like when people say that we have a higher consciousness or higher awareness, I don't know how to explain to us to do that, and I don't even know if I can explain what it is. It's something that has to be experienced. It's ineffable. It has to be experienced. It can't be explained. It can't be understood except through this experience. So I'm going to talk about literally climbing up into a high place, and hopefully that will make sense for us if we can apply it to that metaphorical way. What are some high places we find in San Diego?
Point Loma.
Point Loma.
Chip-Rock.
What's that?
Chip-Rock.
Where?
Chip-Rock.
Oh, Chip Rock.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Chip Rock would be a good example. I just can't talk about it because I've never been there. How many of you have been to Chip Rock before? Only one person? One person? How long did it take you to
30 minutes or 45?
That's it? 30? I always hear it takes hours to do it. Do you pass by lazy people when you're walking?
Yeah.
People who are saying, it took 2 hours, but they're doubled over drinking water and yeah. And did you guys ever go to Cowell's? How many of you have been to Cowell's before? A couple of you. What's that experience like? How long does it take you to do it?
Like an hour.
An hour? Do you pass people, or do you
Yeah.
get passed by those people?
No, I would pass you.
Pass
How long
people
does
or-
it take you?
That's not the point. One of the more recent times I was there, it was this past summer, and there was a woman, and she was with some of her friends, and they were all kind of going up, and I was passing them as I was going up, and this woman had her phone, and she was a bigger woman, and her friends were kind of every shade in between. And I overheard her as I was walking past telling her friends, you know what, I'm not feeling well, I'm kind of dizzy, but actually, and I forgot, I have to actually make a phone call. So go ahead and go up without me. I'm gonna go back down, get some water, and I need to make this phone call. And her friends, who were the ever supportive friends, said what?
Sure.
Sure. Yeah, that's exactly what they said. Okay. They didn't encourage her. Why was she dizzy? What was the phone call she had to make?
Okay. Taking a deep breath.
Yeah, probably just taking a deep breath and fighting with herself, because it was only about a quarter of the way up the mountain. But you get the idea that this is just something that she's probably not used to. And her friends who brought her along all said, okay. And then they turned and they kept going up. And then she stood there for a minute. She didn't immediately go back down. And when I was passing, I never did see her head back down. I don't know, she stayed, if she continued to finish or not. But I mean, think about that. If that was your friend, how would you respond to that?
You want to tell them to come with me?
Yeah. Anybody else?
I would just be like, are you sure? Like, we can come down there with you and then like, just like come back up or something.
Maybe we can go down there with you, catch your breath, make your phone call. Yeah, make your phone call. We'll stand over here so we're not.
See if you're lying.
I was going to say just to make sure that we're not intruding, but yeah, I guess to make sure you're not lying. We want to see the call log. That's who you phoned. And I wonder how many of us would just be like, oh yeah, okay, no problem, because you know your friend's quitting at that point. You know it's not about those other things. You know it's what it's really about. And it got me thinking about some things about that with regards to how much do we encourage our friends when our friends aren't willing. It's a lot like teaching. I was thinking about that, where I'm still stuck. I had a meeting just yesterday, and I was talking with one of the administrators about being stuck in this area of figuring out how much I'm supposed to, how much I should, not supposed to, but how much I should pull unwilling students or push unwilling students, and how often I should say, okay, I'll see you on the way back down the mountain. And I don't know, because I don't know how much encouragement some people need. This is one of my biases. If you go to my gym and you tell me, I'm not sure if I'm going to go today, Scanlon, why not? I stubbed my toe. I jammed it this way and it kind of hurts. I would probably say to you, I hear you. I don't want to train hurt. You might get hurt worse. So yeah, take your time to heal it. If I get shot, I'm going to say, wait. I need to stop this bleeding because I'd wrap the leg up and go, I'll get it checked tomorrow. I'm going to the gym right now. In other words, I expect something way more out of myself, and I force myself way more than I encourage anybody else. And by the way, it really is that bad. I'll talk to people during the day and they'll say, I'm kind of tired. I'm not sure I'm going tonight. I'll say, yeah, all right, rest up. Come back tomorrow strong. Meanwhile, I tore my ACL on a Monday, and I was back to it on Thursday, doing the best I possibly, on Wednesday, doing the best I possibly could. I don't know how much we're supposed to shove people, how much we're supposed to pull people, how much it has to come from inside. Because when things are in front of you and they're concrete, it's much easier to do things, to force yourself, because you can see an end point. Maybe going up that mountain, you can look up and you can see the top of it, so you can kind of drive yourself and push yourself maybe more to get to that top, because you can see that physical point if you follow. But it can also be detrimental perhaps, because that top point looks so far away. And especially if you're at college, you can see there's those switchbacks, you can see all the people and everything going to the top. It can become daunting maybe when we see how far it is. It's kind of like graduating from a university. And how easy is it? The classes aren't the hard part. The classes are not the hard part. The hard part is all of the bureaucracy and the red tape and the filling out paperwork and then getting the classes and all of that. What used to take 4 years now takes people 5, 6 years to do. Just because there's so many people that are there, it's difficult to get those classes. And then that means that you're looking at a couple of extra years of tuition, which gets really expensive. So now people are thinking, wow, rather than 4, this is going to take me 6. That's a long time. Plus, there's going to be a whole bunch of extra money. And, I have to fill out this form again. That's the thing that usually kind of gets people out of university. It's not so much the workload. And as I said to you before, think about every teacher you've ever had. Think about every substitute you've ever had. Even that one that you're thinking about right now, they have a university degree, which means it's doable. Doable for everybody to finish university. Just about everybody, sorry. But, it's that abstract endpoint. If I could tell you, you will be done by this day, at this hour, maybe it's much easier to do. Unless I tell you, well, that day is 7 years out. And it's like, 7 years? What's that even going to look at? I mean, that's a third of your lives at this point. And so, a high point, though, can give you some sort of perspective. I'm thinking about cows. And if you guys go there, do you guys ever go on the weekends? At the times that you guys have gone? Get there, you have to park. And parking is only maybe a dozen and a half maybe, parking spaces. Otherwise, it's all street parking. And the street parking goes way down. It's down a hill, by the way. So you have to climb the hill in order to climb the hill. So you have to park kind of far away sometimes, especially if you go when it's sunny out. Now it's kind of hot, it's sunny, there's a lot of people who are there. And then I'm thinking about the process of even getting there. The process of getting there, sometimes there's a lot of traffic, maybe there's road construction. So you're kind of having to fight through to get to where you're going, and it's taking a long time. And it's even worse because you look over the side and there's someone who's walking up the sidewalk and they're passing you even though you're in your car. It's taking so long to get there. And then finally, like I said, you make the left onto the street, you go there, then you got to find parking. You may have to park, quarter mile away, eighth of a mile away, and then you got to walk up the hill just to start the point of getting to the hill. And that sounds a lot to me like I said, the problems of college, just kind of getting in and getting set up and all of that. But then you look up and you see a whole bunch of people going up the mountain, and then you start Well, you'll go for it anyway. And here's the reward that you get. When you get to the top, and you do finally get to the top, and then people take that picture of themselves with the plaque, and they post it on Instagram, we made it, as though it was a war or something. We made it. And that's good. And I don't mean to poo-poo that accomplishment. It is something good, because I remember asking some people before, like, has anybody ever not finished that? And then there were a few people who I was there with, and they kind of said, yeah, like, my first few times I didn't finish it. Like, oh, okay, so that answers my question. So if you finished it, it is something that's kind of cool. And then when you get to the top, if you guys haven't been there, you look out and you see all of San Diego. It's the highest point in Mission Trails, so you can see all of San Diego. And there's one particular, you can look at downtown, you can look in one particular direction, there are all the other mountains in San Diego. And it's a neat thing because there's a little graphic thing that you can look at where you look at this panel and you look up, and what's on the panel is a picture of that skyline that you're seeing right there. So you can say, oh, that's Mount Miguel. You can kind of look at where it is, and it tells you the elevation of that place. So now, if you start off down here, I'm not sure how high Taos is. I want to say it's like 4,000 feet. I don't know. I don't want to make up the number, but I will. Let's just say it's 4,000 feet. When you start off, it may have sounded like that's a long way to go. And the hard part about cows, by the way, is the incline. It's not the distance, it's the incline. It's only like 3/4 of a mile up, and 3/4 of a mile back down. So you're only looking at like 1.5 miles of a hike, round trip. But that incline is pretty steep. But anyway, you can look now at this panel. You can see the skyline of all of San Diego, all the other mountains and hills. And you can see things like a mountain that's in the distance, which is like 10,000 feet. And if I just asked you, hey, you want to go climb a 10,000-foot mountain? You might be like, no, what are you crazy? That's 2 miles. Yeah, but if I'd asked you at the very beginning of this, you want to go climb 4,000 feet? You might have been like, that seems pretty steep, But then when you get to the top of that, it doesn't seem so far now. And you can look out the distance and go, oh, that 10,000-foot mountain? So it's just over double what I just did. Yeah. Well, I could do that. That's possible. I could do that maybe. In other words, getting to the top of that mountain gives you an understanding that you can climb a lot of other mountains in your life. If we started off, the idea of climbing this one single mountain seemed pretty steep. Even walking up the hill to get to the base of this mountain seemed kind of steep. But once you get to the top, you gain a perspective. You get a perspective of your own abilities. But I think that there's a more important perspective that you can gain. Remember when we were getting there, and there was that road construction going on, and that person walking past us on the sidewalk, and all the traffic and everything? When you get to the top of that mountain, you have the opportunity now to look down at it. Being separated from the chaos, when you're in a place of relative tranquility, and you're away from the loudness of the world. And now you can look down at the chaos that you were just in, and you can realize that it's not chaotic at all. There's an order to it. There are lanes, and even though there's traffic down there, and even though there's road construction down there, even the people coming over into the lanes, there's an order to it. It's not as chaotic as it seems when you're down in it. Once you're separated from it, you can see it's actually almost quite peaceful. It's almost reassuring, because that tells you that the world around you is not as chaotic as it seems. It isn't the situation that's chaotic, it's our interpretation of it that makes it chaotic. And your interpretation from up on high is very different from when you're down in it. And this is true about a lot of tragedies in life. That when we're down in it, we say things like, what doesn't kill me makes me stronger. I'm going to grow from this experience. It's going to make me the person who I'm going to be. But it's hard to believe when you're in the midst of all of that. But if you can separate yourself from it, literally, physically, going up to a high place and being able to look around, that gives you a far different perspective, a calming one. In fact, all high places have the potential to change you, if you're willing.
No, Half Dome is high as hell. I gave up after 5 hours.
So where?
Half Dome in Yosemite.
Half Dome? Gee, I've never been in Half.
That's so, oh my gosh. I gave up. I stayed at the waterfalls.
How much farther was there to go?
I don't even know. It's like they said 18 hours.
18
I was
hours?
talking to I was talking to a group, and the girl was like, yeah, it takes us like 18 hours. I was like, oh no, I'm gonna stay here.
And that's it. How far had you gone?
5.
5 hours, so another 13 hours. It's half of a day. My goodness. Plus you're carrying all your supplies,
But, like,
right?
on your way up, there was waterfalls, so like you could take a break and like swim and you go more. But no.
No?
Who did you stay with yourself or with my sister? Oh, my dear.
What do you think you'd have seen up there?
A lot. It was really pretty.
You'd have seen something in yourself, too. You should go back. You should try it. I say that because I know some people who have done it. I didn't realize it was that long, though. It was that far. But I wonder when you get to the top of Half Dome, what it is that you see. I mean, you can see, of course, the whole area around. But as I was saying, it has this, every high place has the power to transform us if we're willing. Meaning that when you're down here, you don't believe perhaps that you could possibly get there. Or maybe you intellectually understand it, but you don't really internally grasp it, you know? Because you haven't done it. It's like when we tell you, you could do anything in life, and we all go, uh-huh, like we believe it, but we don't really believe it. Because then we look at like an application and we're like, how the hell do I do this? You know, it's difficult the first time that you do it. Everything is hard the first time that we do it. And then the things that are worthwhile, by the way, are difficult the 100th time that you've done them as well. In other words, things get a little bit easier, but the very difficult things in life don't necessarily get easier. It's like going out pals now. It's easier because I know what to expect, but you know, every once in a while you get to a point where you're like, what am I trying to prove? Why am I even doing this? You know? But when you get to that top, you now have a reason to believe in yourself because you've accomplished something. So what you're seeing is not just the world around you. It's not just seeing that the chaos is not as chaotic as it seems. What you're also seeing is something inside of yourself that says, I can do this, then maybe I can do this one. And if you can do that one, you can do the next one. And that's a metaphor for life. If I do this one difficult thing, whatever it is, then you can do that next difficult thing as well. But you've got to first prove to yourself that this is possible. That poor woman, and I mean that poor woman going up the mountain who didn't have friends to encourage her, she has no reason to believe that she can accomplish these things in life. She probably feels terrible about herself in other areas, and she's not necessarily sitting there thinking to herself, I'm crap because I can't walk a mountain. She's probably not thinking of it that way. But the failure to get to the top is certainly a symptom of that thinking. That's probably been reinforced in a number of other areas of life. This is why if you ask me how do I gain confidence in life, you've got to walk a mountain. You have to force yourself up it. And how do you do that? Sheer willpower the first few times. I began by saying, yeah, I used to go, I'd go jog cows. And if you've been in cows, I'm sure you've seen those people who jog it. Again, that wasn't to brag. How many times did I have to walk it before I finally could jog it? How many times did I jog it this far? And then finally start jogging it this far before finally being able to do that? You guys ever see somebody, like a professional athlete, who's able to, like a baseball player, and you see their swing and you say, man, it's like effortless. It's like second nature to that person. Or you see a soccer player and you go, the way they kick is just, it's like it's their nature. I guarantee you there are tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of repetitions underneath that second nature. You know, it takes, as it's been said, it takes an entire lifetime to make an overnight success. Any of you guys like Ariana Grande? How many of you guys like her music? Or are willing to admit it? Oh, okay. I had never really heard much from her. And I just watched this movie a few days ago called Don't Look Up. I don't know if I mentioned it in this class.
That's a really good movie.
Yeah, it's actually really good. It's frustrating because you can see it happening in real life. It's just so damn frustrating. But she sings a song. In fact, I was describing, because I only saw a part of the movie at one point, and I was talking to a class, and I described it that she was like an Ariana Grande type character. And then someone told me, oh no, that's actually her. I go, oh, okay, I didn't know that. And she has a wonderful sense of humor. But she sings a song in that movie that I'm just like, I never knew she could sing like that. It's unreal when you hear her vocal performance there. And she's singing a silly song. She's not singing like this deep, heartfelt song that's in her soul. It's just like the technical skill there is just like, my God, how did you do that? How does that come out of a human being? It actually blew me away. I mean, you know how much I like to talk. I had nothing to say for a while after hearing that, and I was just like, wow. It's like she just popped out of the womb doing that, right? How many thousands? I mean, she has skill and she has talent. Of course, she has God-given talent, but she also has thousands and thousands of hours under her belt of practice, probably, to be able to do that kind of a thing. So that when she shows up to the rest of us, it sounds like, wow, that's like second nature to her. You know? But every high mountaintop takes steps to get there. And you've got to, at first you have to push yourself before it becomes habit of doing that. And that's true about everything in life. Anything in life that you find yourself struggling in, or something in life that you want to succeed in, and don't confuse things I want to succeed in as just things that, if you find yourself failing in things, don't console yourself with the idea of, well, I'm not trying to be successful in that anyway. Failure is failure. If you're engaging in the activity and you fail to reach an objective, you're failing. And you can lull yourself into this idea of, well, I'm not trying anyway. That becomes very comfortable. That's a place where losers will dwell, because if you fail at something, you can just say, well, I wasn't trying anyway. You know? Be careful with that. That's why it's so important to know yourself. But I would suggest to you that when you do get to that high place, nobody should come down from a high place unchanged. No one should come down from a high place unchanged. You should have discovered some things about the world. You should have discovered some things about yourself. And ideally, you've discovered some things about yourself that you're going to bring back down into the world. It's no coincidence that, every major world religion starts with a mountaintop, with a person going up to the mountaintop. It was said that Moses ascends the mountaintop and he communes with God, and as he returns back down, his face is changed. He doesn't even realize it. But the Israelites see it, and they say, dude, you've changed since you've been up there. What happened? And he says, I've communed with a God up there. You know? Zoroaster went up into a mountaintop before, and he found no God there, but he was up there for 7 years. And when he returns back down the mountain, he brings something of that wisdom with him. The world doesn't necessarily want to hear it. But sometimes, again, we have to hear things that we don't want to hear. And that's the job of the hero, to come back and tell everybody about it. It was said that Muhammad goes up into a mountain, and he returns again, changed, and changes the world for that. It was said that Buddha, by the way, goes into a mountain, hangs out for 6 years, and wasn't willing. So he returned back down the mountain, unchanged, but not just unchanged, actually a worse person, because he encountered something that he refused to fully encounter. He had to go back up the mountain and make himself willing before he received the wisdom that he would come back down and eventually form what we know today as Buddhism. It's no coincidence that every world religion starts with this idea of coming up to a mountain. It's not just because of this symbolic idea that on a mountaintop we're closer to the divine, that we're closer to heaven. That's probably part of it. But moreover, you're separated from the world, because it's difficult to find yourself when you're connected to the world and you're part of the world. And it becomes difficult to see where the world ends and you begin, and vice versa. You have to separate yourself from that, because that's how it is that you come to know yourself. You know what osmosis is? Osmosis is when you absorb things without meaning to. Yeah. It's kind of like that. When we're in the world, we absorb things without meaning to. And I can demonstrate this. If I ask you, why, nothing is everything. But why do you dress the way you dress? It's just what I like. Yeah, but why do you like it? Because you fit in. It's because you've learned socially that that's how you're supposed to dress. You know, not me. Okay. Everybody except for you. Why is it that we speak in certain ways? Why is it that the slang for different generations stays within those generations? Because we absorb these things through the world without meaning to. And it's difficult to present yourself as yourself when you're constantly receiving this influence from the world. So you have to separate yourself from it. And moreover, by the way, When you're down there in the chaos, everything is happening so fast. You know, it becomes very difficult to wrap your mind around the world. So one of the great things about going up the mountain is that now, the biggest problem in your life is how to take those next 2 or 3 steps. It isn't your job, it isn't your family, it isn't your relationship, it isn't any of those other things that are plaguing you. It's how do I get a couple more steps before I get up there. And then when you get to the top, what you start to realize is, yeah, those things didn't matter. Maybe they don't matter as much as I think that they do. You know? And so what I'm saying is that when you reach the top place, it gives you an opportunity to slow the world down. Because now you're separated from it. You don't have to fight and compete within the chaos of it. You can stop it. You can observe it. You can understand it for what it is. So that when you return back into it, you understand what you're returning to. The chaos is not going to be so chaotic. The tragedy is not going to be so tragic, because you're going to have an understanding of it. What makes tragedy tragedy, sometimes, by the way, there is real tragedy, but a lot of times, it's perspective. And I'll leave you with this. Talk to people who you know who have gone through some significant life events, getting laid off, a divorce, anything that is a significant event to people at the time. And then if it's been a few years, ask them, was your life better before or after that event? And I think a lot of times you're going to find people who are going to say, you know, at the time it seemed like the worst thing in the world. But afterwards I realized it showed me some things. And it may have been the best thing to ever happen to me. So if we reach that high point, maybe the tragic will, even if it's still tragic, maybe it'll seem less tragic. And that goes back to what Gabby was saying last time, about how events, we can use the events in a positive way. And then we can grow from them. And then maybe we can actually quote Nietzsche verbatim and say, what doesn't kill me makes me stronger. Questions? Comments? Concerns? Complaints? Yes?